Hello everybody, this is English for You, and a very warm welcome to the program that helps you develop your speaking skills and your listening skills, and also it helps you to increase your vocabulary. Today in the studio I have my fazekas guests, but two generations of students. So first, the elder generation. Agnes, how are you doing?
Thanks.
This is the first time you've been on television, right?
Yeah, that's right.
How does it feel?
Well, not that bad.
Okay, good. Szabolcs, you're an old hand in the business. How are you doing?
I'm always fine.
Good. And the younger generation, Dori, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
And Andrew, how are you doing?
Me too, fine.
Yes.
Thanks.
And do you think there's a generation gap between these two groups? Because I believe you are 8th graders. And have you ever talked to those two guys at school? Never?
No. Yes, I have.
Yes? You have talked to Agnes?
Yes.
All right. But this is the first time you are really together. So it's a sort of get-together also, right? Matyi, would you give me a nice wave at the back?
May I sit to the younger generation?
Okay. How are you feeling?
Me? Everything's great.
Okay.
You?
Fine. Thank you very much. And today's special guest is Professor David Statman. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Professor.
Thank you.
And do you want me to call you Professor or David?
David will
Thank you very much. I'm going to call you David then. And the first time I met David was a newspaper. This is a newspaper clipping saying that Professor David Statman is Budapest's guest. And I said to myself, well, what a nice thing, what a fantastic thing to invite a scientist who's going to spend a year in Hungary. So what I did first, I actually went on the internet, and the first information, the first piece of information I found was this. Over to you, David. Would you be so kind as to read it out?
Demonstration of one-way image reconstruction using photorefractive barium titanate doped with rhodium.
I was a little bit discouraged. I said to myself, how on earth would I be able to talk for 26 minutes about this thing I can't really say, I can't really read out, I can't really make out. But luckily, the next piece of information was this, and it helped me a lot. Again, over to you, David.
Congratulations to Allegheny Fulbright scholars, David Statman, Associate Professor of Chemistry and Physics.
That was something I was able to understand, so I was very happy. But again, over to you, David. Would you help me with this Allegheny and Fulbright? So what does it mean?
Well, Allegheny is a college that I teach at. I'm on the faculty of Allegheny College, and I received a Fulbright Award for this year. So I'm called a Fulbright Scholar, and this award is what is supporting my stay here in Budapest for the year.
For a whole year?
Well, the Fulbright Award is actually for 5 months, but I'm on sabbatical, and the college is supporting it in part.
Excellent. Good. And Allegheny is in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Right. Okay. And what about this associate or associate? How would you pronounce it again?
Associate Professor.
Associate Professor. And we're going to have 3 words here. Assistant Professor, Associate Professor, and Professor. What's the difference?
These are different ranks of professors. The assistant professor is usually the entering rank, and that begins the process. And one is typically an assistant professor for anywhere between 5 and 7 years, at which point that professor's work, both in teaching and research, is evaluated, and it's determined whether they should be promoted to associate professor. At that time, then they can become promoted to associate professor. One can remain an associate professor for the balance of their career, or at some point be evaluated again for a promotion to professor, which we often refer to as full professor.
Full professor?
Yes.
Are you going to be a full professor?
I've been nominated for that, so I expect that I will be a full professor within the next few months.
Excellent. And do you need a PhD to become an assistant professor?
Yes, yes.
And do you remember the title of your dissertation? A dissertation is a long piece of work on a particular subject. Do you remember what it was?
Yes, I was looking at the scattering of laser light when sent through polymer samples. A polymer is a plastic, molecule of plastic, and I was studying the interaction of the light with the polymer molecules.
I'm trying to look very, very intelligent now. I think I've understood laser. And then, okay, but we're going to get into it a little bit later. Thank you very much, David.
You're very welcome.
I asked my students to find something that interested them in physics and chemistry, because David is a professor in physics and chemistry. And I asked you to bring in a couple of photographs, and that's what we are going to have on the projector. So who is going to recognize the first picture? Whose picture is this? Yes, Dore, please. So what is it, and why did you choose this?
I chose it because I like this experiment, and it's about electronic things, because on this picture we can see two metal plates. One of them is positive and the other one is negative. And then there is a neutral ball hanging between them, and then first the positive plate charges the neutral ball, and then it makes the ball become positive, which is attracted by the negative plate then, and then it makes the ball pop from one plate to the other until it slows down and equalizes the two plates.
Your English is amazing. Congratulations. Thank you very much. It was very interesting. Have you ever done this experiment, David?
That particular one I have not, but that's a very interesting experiment.
Thank you very much. May I have the next picture, please? Right. Sabor.
Yes, I'm really interested in the mysteries of physics. One of that is lightning ball. You know, that's lightning that has a ball shape. And there are a lot of stories about it. People said they have seen one, and strange fire are supposed to be caused by this lightning. But on the whole, we don't have any evidence. So that makes the whole thing interesting.
And mysterious.
Yes, and the possibility to reveal unknown things.
Thank you very much. Great. The next picture, please. And if you recognize it, right. Andrew.
That's my picture. And it's about an experiment, a chemical experiment called the ammonia fountain. And so we have a retort which is full of ammonia, and in that retort there is a cork, but in that cork there is a tube made of glass which connects the ammonia inside the retort with the outer world. And if we put this flask with its open side down into water, then water will start to come into the retort very fast.
Like a fountain.
Yes, and
like
it looks like a fountain.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Very interesting, right? And the last, I think it must be yours, Agnes.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
what is it?
Crystal. And I find it really interesting that a crystal has almost the same structure as a graphite, or these have the same structure, and they're really difficult and different things.
Yes, and very beautiful.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wonderful. Right. My students are amazing, right?
I think so.
And then the next thing is going to be, I think, Machi. What is this?
I don't know.
I think this is your school report.
Really?
And
Do you think?
two things are highlighted here, chemistry and physics. And elégséges, number 2, means that almost fail. So we have one...
Okay.
Sorry about that. So, okay, Machi, you are a very bright person. You're very intelligent and talented. I know this. How come that you performed so poorly, so badly at school?
You know, that was absolutely not my mistake. That was because of the teacher, because of the school, because of the class, because of the weather, because of the temperature.
Okay, now tell me the truth. Okay, tell me the truth. So what is the truth?
It was not interesting for me.
Uh-huh.
But not only physics and chemistry. It was interesting ages in the secondary school. I could speak about it for hours, but that's not too beautiful.
All right, so maybe there are going to be a couple of things that might interest you. For example, I think I've got to get into these 2 words. Paint is the first. What can you paint? Szabolcs.
Well, you can paint Painting a picture, you can paint your car, you can paint everything.
You can paint a wall.
You will paint a wall.
Excellent, good answer. What can you dye? And this is the other word. Dory, please.
Your hair, maybe.
You can dye your hair, and also you can dye
Clothes.
clothes. Now, in the Hungarian language, we have one word for this. If it's a noun, we say feste, but they are very, very different, because as far as paint is concerned, it's a substance you put on the surface of something. And as far as dye is concerned, I think it's a more radical change. If you think of dyeing clothes, it's not just the surface. Got that? Right. Good. Now, what we are going to do now, we are going to watch an experiment. And the first picture is right here. What do you think is going to happen? Agnes, look at this picture.
Well, this guy, I guess he's going to paint or dye something, yeah, maybe dye. There are things in chemics that can be dyed, and the change of the color shows a lot of things.
Right. And I think we are in a laboratory, because of the things you can see everywhere. Thank you very much, Agnes. Group 1, Matyi, and this one, Group 2. Group 1, what do you need for this experiment? So all the ingredients. Group 2, what happens with the dye particles? Okay, would you roll the tape, please?
These are 3 samples of material: wool, cotton, and acetate. And this is a mixture of 3 different dyes. In fact, there's a red, a yellow, and a blue dye in this mixture. The dye particles in the mixture can be attracted by the fibers of the material. The dye particles form a colored layer all around the fiber and change its color. The problem is that not all dye particles stick to all fibers. So, what might happen with our 3 different dyes and 3 different materials? In fact, each material is dyed by one and only one of the 3 dyes in the mixture: red, yellow, or blue.
Okay, Group 1, Szabolcs, please.
Yes, we need 3 samples of materials and a mixture of dyes, red, yellow, and the blue dyes in the mixture.
Mixture and 3 samples of material. Excellent. And Andrew? Okay.
The dye particles are attracted by the parts of the clothes, and because of that, some particles of the dye, they dye some types of clothes.
Fibers, clothes.
Fibers.
Right, so the problem is that not all dye particles stick to all fibers. Dye particles, I think you are going to be interested in this, or you are interested in dye particles, but on a different level, I believe. Yes. And you're gonna talk about this just a little bit later. So would you please try and remember dye particles, dye molecules? It's going to be very important. Right, I've hidden 5 pieces of equipment in your desks. So would you just try and find those pieces of equipment, and if you have found something, would you please hold it up? Right. Agnes, have you found it?
Yeah.
Can you recognize this? Would you show it to me? Yes. What do you think it is?
That's a watch.
Excellent. Wasn't very challenging, right?
Yeah.
Szabolcs?
So that's a scientific calculator.
Good. Matyi, what have you got?
Mobile or handy.
What would you call it, David? Mobile or handy?
Actually, we call them in the United States cell phones.
Cell phones, cellular,
Yes.
cell phones. Okay, very nice. Dory, what have you got?
I think this is a thermometer, what people have to put in their ears, and then...
Yes, it's a thermometer. Would you put it in your ear? Would you?
Okay, like this.
Oh, you look wonderful with this piece of equipment. Right. And Andrew, what have you got?
This is a Game Boy. So, well, I don't know if it has a special name, but this is...
This is a Game Boy. You're absolutely right. Now, this is my question. What do you think your pieces of equipment have in common? Dead silence. Let me help you. David, could you help us what these pieces of equipment have in common?
All of these equipment have liquid crystals on their display.
Right. They have a display so they can actually read numbers, or you can actually see something, and it's called LCD. David has already mentioned, but I wonder if you can still come up with what it stands for, LCD. Does anybody give me an answer? Andrew, try it.
Liquid crystal dyeing or what?
Liquid crystal, it's going to...
display.
Okay, would you read it again?
Liquid crystal display.
Liquid crystal display. Great. Okay, we're going to talk about liquid crystals in just a moment. But before that, I have another enigma for you. I'm talking about an instrument for showing direction. And this instrument has a freely moving pointer, which always turns to the magnetic north. So if you know what this instrument is, would you put up your hand? Say it. 1, 2, 3.
Compass.
Excellent. And I've got this compass right here. This is a very nice compass, right? And I'm going to place it on the table. And, well, north is over there, this direction. What else have I got here? I've got a piece of magnet, and I'm going to put it right here, because David is going to need those two things for his lecture. So, before that, we're going to have a very scientific sentence here, and again, I'm asking you to read it out, please.
Professor Statman will investigate how light interacts with and changes the orientation of liquid crystal molecules and dye molecules.
Whew. Now what we need is this thing in everyday language, right? So over to you, David, and I'm going to sit down, and this is your place to talk.
Well, I suppose the first thing I would need to explain is what we mean by a liquid crystal, what these liquid crystal molecules in your displays are doing, and why we call them liquid crystals. We're very familiar with solid crystals, and those are crystals in which all of the molecules in the crystal are in a nice ordered pattern, so that you would have a fixed pattern. And I have this in 2 dimensions, but you can imagine that this fixed pattern can go out in 3 dimensions. And the molecules cannot move, or they can move very, very small amounts, so small that you really cannot detect the motion. And that's why crystals are hard, such as salt crystals or even sugar crystals, or diamond. Diamond is a crystal, and it's very hard. Liquid crystals are not solid. They're liquids, but the difference is that the molecules are all oriented in the same direction. So they're molecules that are long and look like pencils, and they are lining up in the same direction. So we call them a crystal because there is an order associated with them, just like there is an order associated with the solid crystal. But they're liquid because the molecules can move around each other. They can go up and down, or they can swim around. The only thing that doesn't change is their orientation, that they're all oriented along the same direction. So they're liquid because they can move, but they're crystalline because they're ordered. Now, what happens in your display is that we apply an electric field to the liquid crystal and change the orientation. So if I were to, let's say, apply an electric field across this liquid crystal, in this direction, so I'll say this is my electric field, and I'll put an E here for electric field. An electric field is similar to a magnetic field. An electric field interacts with the liquid crystals in the same way that a magnetic field interacts with a compass needle. Then all of a sudden, we will see that these molecules will change their direction, and they will face in the direction of the field. And as long as the field is on, they'll do that. And when we turn the field off, they'll go back to their original orientation. So if you look at the compass, you would see that the compass needle wants to point north here. And that's the normal direction that a liquid crystal molecule would want to point. Then I turn the electric field on, and that's as if I put an electric magnet here, and you see that the compass needle has now changed direction. On your liquid crystal display, the points that are dark, that you see your numbers or your pictures on your Game Boy, those are areas where there is an electric field and have reoriented the molecules. Whereas the clear, or not dark areas, the lighter areas, are where they're in their natural orientation.
Thank you very much. And if you look at the projector, you're going to see the experiment that you are working on, and you've been working on, and it's going to come up, and it's going to be, I believe, a laser beam?
Yes.
Okay, so what is your experiment about?
Well, light is composed of electric and magnetic fields that are oscillating very, very fast. Imagine that we have here a static electric field, it's not changing, and light is an electric field and a magnetic field together that are moving very, very rapidly, so fast that your eyes can't see that. And what happens is that the electric field of the laser beam can do the same thing as the electric field in your calculator.
Sorry, you can see
I'm
that
sorry.
right over there.
Okay, and so what we have here is the laser beam going into the liquid crystal sample. And we have the electric field of that laser beam oriented in such a way as to change the orientation of the liquid crystal molecules. And we're studying the effects, or how the light interacts with the liquid crystal molecules to facilitate this reorientation.
Thank you very much. Excellent. It was very, very interesting. Thank you very much. Would you sit down, please? And what do you think about the future of LCD? So there's going to be, and there are, LCD television screens and also cathode ray tube. So how do you think it's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that we're going to see many more of our televisions are going to have LCDs instead of cathode ray tubes. Cathode ray tubes are what our standard television screens are today. And I believe that because they are much more compact, thinner, that we will see liquid crystal displays being used more commonly.
Right. We're going to meet Mr. Professor George Rado, living in Oxford, and he's a Hungarian-born scientist. And would you listen to him? He's going to talk about what takes to be a good scientist. So would you just listen to it? Okay? Would you roll the tape, please?
Imagination, I always think, is very important in doing good science. I remember when I was very young and doing my first piece of research, what motivated me to do the work was the excitement of making a discovery, learning something new. That excitement is still there, and if you are not excited about that, you might as well give up science. But then there are now other factors in one's motivation. You really want to make it a much longer-term commitment. So you want to be able to build up something. It's not just a one-off. Science is full of rediscoveries of something that somebody has thought of 20, 30, sometimes 40 years before. And it was totally forgotten. The idea was obviously just as good then as it is now, but you couldn't test it, you couldn't follow it up, and it didn't fit into the general framework of what you knew then. So timing in science is important, and vision in its own is not sufficient. So the two together, I think, make a good scientist.
Right, so what are the key words? Szabolcs.
Well, the imagination is the most important, and the other part is the timing, because you need the development level of the science.
Timing. Could you catch any other words? Anybody?
Commitment.
Commitment, hard work, and loyalty. Right. So these four words are going to come up, and I've asked you, Professor Statman, to think about what are the most important ingredients of being a scientist. And here are the four: imagination, curiosity, commitment, and timing. So that's what Professor Rado said. what do you think about this?
I would agree. I think that I would use the word playful curiosity. I wouldn't just say curiosity, but playful.
But you
curiosity.
agree?
Yes.
Excitement, playful curiosity.
Yes.
So that's what a scientist needs. Thank you very much for coming.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
We enjoyed your presentation, and I hope, Matthew, you are interested in crystals and molecules, right?
Yeah, after this show, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Is chemics and
Thanks a lot. Bye for now, and it's going to be another interesting topic next week. See you.